All right, round two here. So video two, this one's going to dissect, analyze, and annotate the Declaration of Independence. So just kind of putting that side up. Which, by the way, if you need a little break from my lovely talking, this little link right here is a great video, kind of a parody on One Republic's apologize about the Declaration of Independence to the document itself. So um, kind of highlights from before, but it all kind of makes sense to us in a second. So if we kind of highlight or expand it, I'm going to kind of talk about the structure in a second, or for a second, and then kind of go into the annotation side of it. So if we kind of look at the document itself, it's like three major parts. So the first part's like one long sentence kind of talking about like the reason for separation or like how they're separating. The second part's what we call, or this part, I should maybe just highlight the major part right here. This whole part is what we call the first principles. So when we talk about fulfilling the ideas of the Declaration of Independence or the principles of the Declaration of Independence, it's right there. This is all it. Now, this is the dense stuff. This is the stuff that you like. Here are the highlights, like the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, that men all are created equal. So we have to kind of break this down because it kind of gives us a roadmap on these like natural rights that are going to be then later applied to the Constitution with the civic rights. So let's get started. Top. So one in the course of human events. So Thomas Jefferson right away is saying that this is a larger context type of thing. This isn't just specifically for the American colonists. This is a world history type of stuff. Okay, so then the next part, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to the nature or laws of nature and of nature's God. Entitle them a decent respect to the opinions of mankind require that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. So, like, first of all, holy crap. Second of all, like, he's not talking about the colonists. He hasn't, at this point, not even identified the word colonists in there. So he has said, right, people. So this is talking about general. So a question that often comes up for the Declaration of Independence is, who's this written for? Right, obviously for the American colonists, but you gotta wonder if Jefferson is not thinking about a larger context. And this will be beg, borrow, and steer throughout American history. One specific example is Ho Chi Minh in Vietnam is going to pretty much steal this stuff from Thomas Jefferson. But then here's another one here, right? Who's them? Right? Is it the colonists? Well, obviously, but it also then doesn't talk about a state. It talks about people. So this is another major part about the Declaration of Independence too. The other major part is this part, the nature laws of nature and nature's God. So this is kind of one of these things where it kind of justifies the separation of it because of this kind of natural principle, natural rights. Okay, so this is kind of the major kind of starting point with this, which then we get down to the second part, which is the first principles. Okay, this one's going to be hopefully I have enough time in this video to kind of talk about it because there's just a lot to dissect. So the first, everyone kind of has heard at least this once. If not, well, I don't know where you've been. But again, we'll start the first principles paragraph with this. We hold these truths to be self-evident. So first of all, truths. What are truths, right? So if we kind of think about things like, okay, murder is wrong, 2 plus 2 equals 4, right? So these are truths that all men are created equal. So this is the phrase that everyone always gets hung up on. Did Thomas Jefferson mean that all people, Africans, Asians, Anglo-Saxons, are all equal? Yes and no. It's a complicated answer. So what I'll kind of talk about back in the PowerPoint is this idea that Jefferson is going to embrace the Enlightenment idea that everyone has equal opportunity. Everyone's born equal. It's what you do with that, right? That is kind of up to you. So yes, he's saying that they're equal, but not totally in terms of like socially. Okay. And that they're the next part that they are endowed by their creator with uncertain unalienable rights. So this is important because when you say unalienable means no one can take it away. Specifically, the king can't take it away. Only God can take it away. And even then, right, that is something that is a natural thing, right? So no one can take you that away from you. So that these things that can't be taken away from you are among these life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. So, like, just holy crap here. So, here's another thing. This is a very Lockean thing. So, John Locke talks about what's known as the social contract, this agreement between the government and the people. So in the state of nature, that like you have to give up some of your rights to be protected. So this is that kind of idea. Now I'm going to highlight this because it's a very Lockean thing. But Locke doesn't use happiness; he uses property, which is interesting because again, how do you measure happiness is kind of an interesting concept. But he's just straight up stealing this from John Locke: life, liberty, and happiness. So when we talk about freedoms, right here, life, no one can take that away from you. Those are things that are guaranteed. And to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. And this is the arguably a really important part. So to secure these rights, you have these the government instituted among men, deriving from their powers from the consent of the government. This is what we call, right? I'll highlight this and see if this works out. I'm feeling ambitious here. Popular sovereign. Let's see if I can spell sovereignty. Ooh, sovereign. No, I don't think I got it. Sovereignty. Ooh, not even close. Okay, popular sovereignty. This idea that governments, while they're derived from men, have to have the consent by the people they are governing. Popular sovereignty. This is kind of democracy at its core. So this is we're not even like 2 sentences in here, and we're like heads exploding type of thing. Okay, go to the next part. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter and abolish it and institute new government, laying its foundations on the principles and organizing its power in such form. Right. So this part, they famously, the such form, powers in such form. Lots of people kind of talk about this idea of limited government here, saying that the government can't just do what it wants. Okay, keeping going on, it says as to them shall seem most likely to the effect of their safety and happiness. Okay, the next part, prudence. Prudence means like cautiousness. Indeed, will dictate that the government's long established should not change for the light and transient causes. Essentially, this is saying that, look, you can't just change government because you don't like who's leading it. You have to have a long train of abuses, which is going to say next. According to that, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to the right themselves by abolishing the former governments they accustom. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, or abuses is another kind of way to think about usurpations, pursuing the invariably of the same objects, evidence a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and provide new guards for the future security. So this kind of part talks about like, look, only when you have incurred a bunch of, what's the color I want to use here? I'll use light blue maybe. Only when, right, you have incurred and suffered and you've tried to make up and tried to remedy that, that only then can you kind of have excuse to throw off the form of government. And the next part, I'm running out of time here. Such has been patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now necessary, which constrains them to alter their former system of government. And the history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injury and usurpation. So it's not to like the last sentence of these 2 paragraphs do we finally get the idea of the King of Great Britain. So again, this document is just more than the Declaration of Independence for the American colonies. This is a larger context. So anyways, going back to that. So the king has repeated injuries and usurpations, that all in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over the states. To prove this, let the facts be submitted to the candid world. So this last part's very interesting in the sense that, like, look, here's a bunch of reasons why the king sucks, and we're going to submit it to the world to evaluate whether or not, right, we should be independent. And that is a pretty cool idea. Okay, and you guys can go through and read a bunch of stuff. It's some stuff you know, right? Taxation without representation, right? With juries without trials by their peers, among other things. So we get a lot of our principles based in this first paragraph. So what we call the first principles, popular sovereignty, right? Among other things that we value yet today. So hopefully that helps. Again, there's other YouTube videos out there. If not, we can go over this in class again.